Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine and a week of Cabernet Franc. Now, Cabernet Franc is something you've almost certainly drunk before, but most of the time you'll find it in a blend, playing a bit role, a supporting act in a big Bordeaux style red. But we're starting to see more Cabernet Franc come to the fore on its own terms. Mike Radcliffe and the team at Warwick have done some great work with Cabernet Franc, and this week I've got 4 examples of Cabernet Franc that I think does justice to making it as a single varietal. And the first of those is one I wish you luck in finding, because they've only made 1,200 bottles of it, and if you look at the label at the back you'll see that it's down for export, and so the majority of this is leaving South African shores. It means they're enjoying it elsewhere in the world. Great for flying the flag of South African wine, but it does make it a little challenging to get hold of. So to give it its full title, this wine is Hawksmoor at Mikey's Scale, which is taking my Afrikaans to its limits, and it's a fairly recent operation. Mikey's Scale itself has been going since 1690 or thereabouts, but they've only just got the wine operation back up and running, and what they've brought out is a selection of wine that's made in small quantities and that heads, certainly in this case, outside of South African borders. So limited release, it is a 100% Cabernet Franc. And what is a Cab Franc? Well, to paraphrase Jancis Robinson, it's the more feminine version of the Cabernet Sauvignon, perhaps a little less subdued, a little less robust, not quite commanding all the attention at the centre of the party, but certainly looking good standing nearby. And that's a broad look at Cabernet Franc. Of course, as with all wines, depending on the terroir and how it's made and when it's made, the taste and the flavours will vary, but it's wine that I find generally has been very pleasant. That's got a really rich berry coulis, that thick top of a pavlova feel, and just a really rich, smooth, decadent introduction on the nose. Can the palate match up? Not quite as bold perhaps as the nose, a little bit more refinement, very slight smokiness to it. Quite a crisp red wine, there's a lot of elegance in there. Kind of what you'd expect for that more feminine version of the Cabernet Sauvignon, but really nice wine as sits beautifully on the palate. I really do like that. Cabernet Franc on its own, starting to find its feet again, and this is one of the reasons why. From Hawksmoor out to the Franschhoek Valley, and this is Holden Manz, and this is their Cab Franc from 2014. So they're quite new age at Holden Manz. If you get down to the estate, they've got loads of solar panels on the roofs. They're very keen on making sure that it's a well-run and very environmentally friendly operation. A great art collection if you happen to be in the area, and also some lovely wine. And there's a good range all the way through. Their Big G is probably the best known of them all, their signature. But I think it's their Cabernet Franc that holds sway out of all of them. And not in a dissimilar vein to the previous one. Lovely colour to it, that deep leathery red, kind of Ron Burgundy's Office kind of feel to it, a little bit of smoke to it. Really nice look to it, really nice nose to it. And that suggests that it should also lead into that similar sort of elegance and refinement that we got on bottle number 1. Now, one thing with Cabernet Franc I often find is that it doesn't tend to last quite as long on the palate as some other wines. It vanishes a little more quickly, but what it does leave behind is a really nice feel. It's quite a concise wine in that sense. Again, this one's got a lovely finish. It's a really well-rounded wine. It's another terrific example of why 100% Cabernet Franc is something that really should be done a little bit more of. Then on to Cabernet Franc number 3. And when you see the name Kleine Wijn Koop, there's a reason to look forward to what you're about to drink. We've had a couple of wines from these guys. The labels are always seriously cool. They have an enormous amount of fun with the names. I have a sneaking suspicion that they name their wine to make it difficult for me to pronounce when I'm talking about it on Dan Really Likes Wine. But if the names are a mouthful, then the wine even more so. This is the Knapsekerel. It's from just across the road from De Torre. That's where they find these grapes. They're not an estate themselves. They're 5 young guys with a great passion for wine, and they've got the wine here from an estate that is biodynamic. Not officially yet, so you need to go through a decade or so of the full biodynamic process to get proper recognition, but they've got ducks wandering in and about the vines, and they all wear Hessian sacks and walk barefoot and clap their hands while singing Kumbaya. So you're definitely in a space where they're looking to make sure the environment is at a premium in terms of how they make their wine. And in this case, the Cab Franc, the second one they've made, I loved the first one, and I can't wait to see how the second one plays out. So third Cabernet Franc and third beautiful colour, kind of undiluted Ribena. It's got a lovely richness to it, and that plays off that berry cassis coulis that you often pick up in small measures. This one has been spoken of with great pride and joy by Kleine Wijn Koop. They like what they've made. Let's see if I agree. That is a very gentle wine. It's a very soft and elegant creation, incredibly smooth, really supple, and that sits very, very nicely. There's just a lightness, a softness of touch to it. If you're looking at trying to work out the difference between a Cabernet Sauvignon and a Cabernet Franc, this is a really good example of that refined, elegant, not nearly as loud or brash, just a very understated red wine, that doesn't lose anything in being understated. It's a great example, and Kleine Wijn Koop are starting to make a bit of a name for themselves, have come up trumps once again. And then on to Mr. Bruwer Raats. Now, if there's one person you probably don't want to get stuck in a lift with to have a conversation about wine, it would be Bruwer, because when it comes to, in particular, Cabernet Franc and Chenin Blanc, the man is as passionate as he is knowledgeable, and for however long you're stuck in said lift, you're going to get everything there possibly is to know about making these two grapes in South Africa. And what it says, especially with the Cabernet Franc, which is a wine that's become synonymous with the Raats family wine, is that you've got somebody who knows better than anybody else exactly how to make this grape in South Africa. Challenge that he's often had is different bunches ripening at different times. Cabernet Franc usually ripens a week or two before Cabernet Sauvignon, but the different bunches can pop up and be ready at different times. So managing the process can be a little bit of a challenge, but when you manage it right, when you get it right, the results can be outstanding. So, Bruwer Raats' favourite grape, Bruwer Raats being the man who makes Cabernet Franc as well as anybody, it's safe to say that the expectations here are pretty high. I almost want to be able to find something that punches a hole in those expectations, but you can't really. It's a perfectly elegant wine. The red fruit is showing through delightfully. The balance is all there. And at 5 years old, it's generally a really good time for a South African red. I think it's when it's starting to sit into its best. And that says as much with this particular one from Bruwer Raats. It's got all the hallmarks of a great Cabernet Franc. And it's 100% Cab Franc and 100% absolutely lovely. As indeed, I think are all four. I'm onto a winning week here. 4 really good wines. The Hawksmoor, not very much of it, and not very much in South Africa. Could be a challenge to find it, but worth trying to look for it. The Holden Manz, one of the better wines coming out of Franschhoek at the moment. I really do like that Cab Franc. The guys at Kleine Wijn Koop, I think they only made 700 bottles. Knowing them, they've probably drunk about 600 themselves. The last 100 odd will be available at kleinewynkoop.co.za. That's the only place you can get their wine at the moment. And then this from the signature man of Cabernet Franc in South Africa. There are a number of other great Cabernet Francs knocking around. If it's not something you've tried before, give it a go. I think you might be pleasantly surprised. Enjoy.